Okay, great. So thank you for the introduction, Amy. And as she said, I'm a partner at Stony Hill Advisors. We are uh, a team of M&A intermediaries, and I'm happy to speak to everybody today. Let's get started. So Stony Hill has been around since 2010, so we have a lot of experience performing M&A advisory activities. Uh, we really have four services. We provide perform business valuations. We work on the sell side, helping owners sell to exit, or a minority or majority recapitalization. In other words, sell 25% of the business or sell 75% of the business to an investor. We also work on the buy side, helping companies that want to grow via acquisition to define their criteria and source the acquisition targets. And we perform a service called exit value planning, which is not transaction oriented, but that's designed for the business owner that wants to plan for a future exit. And we work with them to understand their current value, the value they need or want at a future date for their exit, and how to bridge that gap. And we focus on identifying the key value drivers or value levers in their business, and through a coaching program, lead them to maximize the value of those drivers. Because if you think of evaluation using the market method, you're talking about a multiple of EBITDA, let's say. And if your multiple at present time is deemed to be, I'll say, 3.5x, 3.5 times EBITDA, well, you as the business owner may be able to work on improving or growing that EBITDA. We as valuation specialists can work on modifying that multiple and help you get to a 5x or a 6x multiple, which really can increase your value. Our clients are middle market, privately held companies. We've got 10 advisors across multiple states, most of whom are either a certified M&A professional, certified M&A advisor, which comes from a different professional association, certified business intermediary. In 2021, we sold a majority of our business in a majority recapitalization to a company called Small Business Development Group. And our growth plan together is to hire more advisors and acquire other M&A firms. So we're active in each of the top 50 North American markets. And although we're presently based in the Eastern US, as you can see from the states where our team members reside, our clients are nationwide. So today we're going to talk about issues in selling a professional services firm, and I'd like to start off with some of the unique characteristics. The first point I want to make is that the assets of a professional firm are limited and can be fuzzy, and certainly are different than, for example, a manufacturing firm or another business or distribution firm. The first asset that should be important to you as a professional and will be important to a buyer are your relationships, your clients, your referral sources, subcontractors you use. Those are assets of your business that have value to a buyer. Your staff is another asset because they work for you and they don't work for anybody else. So they're clearly an asset of your firm. Your processes that define how you go about doing what you do is another distinguishing asset. And lastly, your brand or your reputation. An acquirer that's looking to acquire your business, this is an important consideration of theirs. So from a valuation perspective, all these assets are intangible or really become goodwill in the course of a transaction. Their value is very challenging to define. It's mostly what a buyer would pay for them because there's no equipment per se that has a hard and well-defined value. The next issue that's important is, do you own a company or are you working a job? As an owner, you're entitled to a return on your investment, in addition to the compensation you earn for performing the job that you're doing. Building value that will appeal to a buyer means creating transferable value that will be additive to a buyer's existing business. This is an important issue for sole practitioners. If you think of your work as a job, you will struggle to build transferable value. This phenomenon is called the owner's trap. So signs that you've fallen into the owner's trap are your business slows when you take a vacation. Customers come to you with problems. Your growth has reached a plateau. Not only are businesses stuck in the owner's trap stressful to run, they're also worthless because nobody is going to buy a company that's solely dependent on its owner, unless that owner will stay on as an employee of the buyer for an extended period of time. Hiring your 2IC is one of the most important steps you can take to get out of the owner's trap and create transferable value for your business. The 2IC is a person who's second in command. Without someone to delegate to, you can't separate yourself from your business. The second most important step is to avoid becoming what we call a foxhole leader. So I'm going to ask the question, what kind of leader are you? The foxhole test is something we're going to talk about it in a minute. You think of members of a team. You don't want to be the most trusted member of the team. We look for you to really be below the most trusted, the second most trusted, even the third most trusted, and I'll explain why. If you were in a foxhole, who would you want watching your back? Right? When forced to pick, most people don't pick their friend. They pick the person they would trust with their life, the person who's been there before and gotten himself or herself out alive. The foxhole leader is in the trenches with the team, never delegates something they wouldn't do themselves, carries the most weight on the team. But when it comes to business, we all know that foxhole leader. She's the first to arrive in the morning and the last person to leave in the evening. There's no task too small for her. Employees look up to their foxhole leader and want to learn from them because employees know there's nothing inside her company the foxhole leader hasn't done firsthand. The paradox of foxhole leadership is that the skills that create loyalty among your employees are the tendencies that drag down the value of your company. Before we get into kind of how to get out of becoming a foxhole leader, let's start with why delegation is a critical skill for any business owner. Being able to delegate well means your company can thrive without you personally overseeing everything. This freedom allows your company to grow without you as a bottleneck, while the quality of your work life improves as you no longer have to spend your time fighting fires and answering mundane questions. Best of all, your company is worth more. So here's a chart. People who responded to a survey question, how would your business perform if you were out of action for 3 months and unable to work? It could be a disability. It could be, hopefully, a vacation. As you can see in the chart, those companies that can sustain a 3-month absence of their owner are more than twice as likely to receive a premium acquisition offer compared to companies unlikely to survive the loss of the owner. Here's an example for Jody Cook. Jody ran a social media company called JC Social Media and sold her business, but had prepared it so she actually left 2 weeks after selling, which is highly unusual for a professional services business. How did she do this? Well, she kept a log of every question employees answered. And she used that to develop a list of 50 recurring processes in her business. Everything from how to answer the phone to how to run payroll. Not just the way to do it, but her way, the way she wanted it done. So she built this company to 16 employees, and she was determined to see it flourish without them. So she positioned somebody else on her team as the company's spokesperson for media interviews. She kept this log of every employee question and set about transferring her knowledge to her team. She created an operating manual for her business, wrote down all of her instructions. She explained everything in detail. And as the business grew, she modified the manual. When employees asked a question, her automatic response was, check the manual. And if the answer is not in the manual, come back and we'll add it. The business really started to thrive without her overseeing day-to-day activities in 2020. She decided to sell and thought her business could be worth 5 to 7 times EBITDA. Her first offer was for 5 times EBITDA, with approximately 20% of her potential proceeds tied to a 3-year earnout. So an earnout means she was going to stay on as an employee, and that 20% would not be paid at closing, but would be paid to her over that 3-year period. So she realized that she failed to make it clear just how well her company ran without her, and she wasn't needed for 3 years. So she declined that offer and continued to market to other buyers. But this time went out of her way to explain how well the business ran without her involvement. She showed potential acquirers her operating manual and explained the lengths she had gone to make herself redundant. She received 2 additional offers and accepted one at the top end of the range she was hoping for. And then she left 2 weeks later. So if the idea of an earnout sounds like a prison sentence to you, take your medicine up front. Invest 3 weeks in the painstaking process of documenting your standard operating procedures so that an acquirer will be able to run your company without you, enabling you to ride off into the sunset, cash at hand. So the question is, are you a prisoner of being the best go-to person in your company? I want to dive a little bit more into earnouts, since they are very common in selling a professional services firm, or really any type of services firm. The first question is, how long will you stay? 3 years is the most common time period, but as you can see, it could be less. Companies in, for example, the wealth advisory subsegment of professional services is typically a 3-year process. So in year 1, it's an opportunity to announce to clients, I've decided to sell my business to XYZ, but I'm still going to be here for the next 3 years, and you'll be very happy with Susie, who's taking over, and I want to introduce you to Susie. And that's in year 1. In year 2, you and Susie are going to split your client meeting 50-50 in terms of how much you talk and the work you do. And in year 3, Susie's going to have the dominant role, and you as the seller will have the passive role. Think of it as an 80-20 rule. And that way, over a 3-year period of time, your client will see that Susie's taking over, and there should be no attrition of that particular client. I've seen accounting firms where the earnout is 5 years, where they'll pay 1 times annual fee income for the business, but to pay it out ratably over the next 5 years, again, because of the tight bond between the service provider and the client. We don't want the buyer to acquire a book of business that all of a sudden goes away. Really, what do they have now? Another question, how much of your transaction should be escrowed? And this is a negotiable item. I've done deals where 90% was paid at closing, 5% paid at 1-year anniversary, 5% at the 2nd-year anniversary. I'm doing a deal right now where the terms are $7 million at closing, $1 million put in escrow, and $1 million of the buyer's stock, what we call rollover equity, which and the escrow will be paid off in two chunks, one at 120 days and one at 1 year, based on meeting certain financial performance goals. What performance metrics are important? Well, this is also negotiable. Are there individual metrics that the seller needs to meet, or team sales targets? Should they be based on sales or profits? Sales are much easier to measure and manage, and so I highly recommend them, because one of the challenges in the earnouts is access to resources, right? If you sell your business and now you're working for your buyer and you see opportunities to expand and want to hire more people, you're not in control anymore. And maybe there are restrictions on accessing people, accessing staff, maybe accessing sales or administrative people. So targets that are based on profit are very more difficult to manage. And rollover equity is becoming more and more common. Again, it depends on who's the buyer. Obviously, if it's an entrepreneur buyer of your business, there is no rollover equity per se. Well, I guess there could be in terms of shares in the new company. But if it's an acquisition by an existing business, rollover equity is very valuable. It could be valuable to you as the seller, because essentially you get another bite at the apple when that buyer's equity sells at some point in the future. One of the things that we do with our clients is we really look carefully in negotiating a put option to ensure liquidity and protect the downside for the seller. So, for example, if I'm selling and part of my deal is equity in the buyer, I would negotiate that after some period of time, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, that if the buyer has not sold, then the buyer would buy back either some, maybe 50% of the rollover equity at the initial transaction value. That way, I'm ensured that there'll be some liquidation event for me, and also it protects my downside if the new business that I'm part of doesn't perform as expected. I'd now like to talk about something that affects probably all of you, and we call this the service provider's dilemma, or the consultant's dilemma, and makes it very challenging to sell a professional firm. The first aspect of the dilemma is that customers demand you, right? Services are delivered by people, and because people vary in experience, customers want the best. Therefore, customers demand you, the owner. And we've probably done this in our own lives, right? You want a particular doctor, you want a particular lawyer in a practice to represent you, right? We demand a specific service provider. Your customers or clients are going to review your experience, your LinkedIn profile, and this leads to customers expecting your attention, not somebody else on your team. Checking references. Because people are human and vary in quality, customers or clients are often evaluating the person behind the service, which means they often seek personal referrals. And this lengthens the sales cycle. Services are often tied with the idea that it is delivered by a single person. If it wasn't, it would be a product. The person delivering the service gets evaluated oftentimes much more than customers would evaluate a product. Right? If you're buying a product, you might go on Amazon or some other source and you'll scan through some of the reviews. It's a pretty quick process. But in the services industry, I'm sure many of you have encountered prospects that want several references. They want references in very specific situations that they can interview in order to determine whether to hire you or not. Third issue is there's a cap on paying for your time. It's hard to charge what you're worth because there's a cap on what we will pay for someone's time. And we have a kind of visceral negative reaction when someone describes what they charge per hour. We mentally compare that hourly fee to the hourly cost of other services. Right? Why is a lawyer from firm A bill at $1,000 per hour when a lawyer from firm B bills at $500 per hour? Are either of these rates appropriate for my work and my project that I need done? Once hired, services are nebulous and scope creep happens. Clients feel nickel and dime if you charge for every little thing. So if you're not attentive to the scope creep or off-the-cuff client requests, you can get taken advantage of. During my days working for an accounting firm, it was common. I just have a real quick question. Doesn't need to be a big deal. It'll only take you 5 seconds. And of course, it really didn't, because you had to assess the question, research the answer, make sure it was the right answer. There could be alternative answers. It's never 5 seconds. Service businesses, unfortunately, our culture has created a negative cash flow cycle. Right? You typically have to provide the service before you charge for it, meaning the faster you grow, the less cash you have. And usually these services are completed before you pay. I know in our business, sometimes we require half the fee up front when the service is really a product that is not a time and materials, and that can help a bit. We also charge a retainer in certain engagements as a way to help with cash flow. But if you think of even an accounting firm, right? They prepare the tax return and then bill for the completed work. Compare this to a product where you have to pay first and then you receive the product to use it. We are just socialized to buy products with cash up front, whereas services get paid after they've been rendered. Billing by the hour puts a hard cap on your growth and eliminates leverage in your business model. We all have a limited number of hours during the week where we can sell or deliver. But we're still buying products that solve a particular problem. The marketers who are winning today are laser focused on solving an immediate problem. Right? As Theodore Levitt, a Harvard professor, said, people don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill, they want a 1/4-inch hole. The drill is just a means for them to achieve their goal. Businesses are now buying Zoom for teleconferencing or Slack for online collaboration. And consumers are dropping personal services in favor of products. So what problem is the drill solving for the customer? The need for the whole. So the solution that I want to suggest is to transform your service into a product. I'm going to show you several examples. Here's from one of our business owner case studies. This is a business that provides duct cleaning. So even in an industry like duct cleaning, it's possible to productize a service. So rather than only provide air duct cleaning, the owners of this company, BJ and John, recognized that homes have other needs. So they created a product offering for their business, dryer vent cleaning and laundry room inspections, things they were likely already doing, but can now generate additional revenue by offering it as a product. They also rebranded as an air quality control company because everybody wants to have good air quality in their home. Here are their product offerings and descriptions for each. They took an hourly billing service and made it look like a thing, a product, and moving from selling time by the hour and moving to selling a process. So what I'd like to do now is toss this back to Zoe to create some breakout rooms for both business networking and also ask you to consider this question that we'll take up in this second half of the program. Why would you want to productize your service, and even maybe how might you go about it. There are 8 unique steps, and we'll talk about them in the next part of the program. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So I'm going to talk about a number of reasons. Number one, the business is less reliant on you, right? Selling a product versus selling a person. For example, there's no background checks involved in selling a product. It'll shorten your sales cycle. A product has a set of features. You hopefully will have testimonials, but the product gets evaluated and not you as a person being evaluated. Also, you can create leverage. Other people can be trained to provide or deliver the product. People hate buying a service with a never-ending time frame. When you productize, you're forced to say exactly what they're going to get, what set of features they will receive, and a price point. Customers get clarity and transparency. You get a positive cash flow cycle, right? Products are purchased in advance. And you're able to stop selling your time, because selling by the hour or selling by the day provides a limit on how much you can earn. So how do you transform a service business into a product? And there are 8 unique steps. So let's dig into that now. Step 1 is to niche down, way down. A lot of people feel uncomfortable with this step, in particular in times like these when you need more customers, not fewer customers. It's counterintuitive, but the first critical step in productizing is niching down, because services can be adapted and customized for a variety of customers, whereas products need to fit one type of customer. You need to find the homogeneity in pain points for the target niche and for your customer base. Picking one niche will also help you design a great product, which makes you referable, and we'll all benefit from the free advertising that comes from referrals. Picking one niche also allows you to efficiently reach potential customers through things like LinkedIn and Facebook groups that are set up to serve a specific target. So I advise you to niche down further than you're comfortable, and then niche down some more. Consider things like demographics, the age, gender, income of your prospect, your target. Firmographics, the company size or industry. The life stage. Are you targeting people just married or people near retirement? Like, for example, our firm, we target people near retirement who would want to sell their business. Company life stage. Is it in the startup phase, mature stage? And psychographics of your target, interests, activities, and opinions. Narrow it down as best as you can. As an example, Jason Swank is a consultant who works with advertising agencies. He developed a digital agency owner mastermind. Not only did he pick an industry niche of advertising agencies, he went even further and focused on digital advertising agencies. He niched way down due to the variance among marketing agencies, and that's why he went to a deeper level. And he was able to find a common set of pain points for his mastermind group to address. Step 2, and this is really important, to discover your TVR, your teachable, valuable, and repeatable solution. Once you've niched down more than feels comfortable, the next step in productizing your service is to identify the services you offer, which are teachable to other people like your employees, valuable to your customers who have a recurring need for it. We call this finding your TVR. So, not right now, but after the program, grab a whiteboard or a blank piece of paper and make a list of the services you offer to the niche that you picked in step 1. Then score each service on a scale of 0 to 10 on the degree to which you can teach employees to offer the service, how valuable it is to your niche, and how frequently your niche has a need to buy it. Pick the service that scores the highest and move to step 3. And you can always come back to this step if you want to consider multiple products. I'm going to show you an example of doing this. Teachable, valuable, and repeatable. So let's look for, use an example of photography services. As you can see in the left column, a photographer can focus on a number of different things: weddings, sports photography, corporate events, and school photos. Look at how each of these services score on the TVR scale. And you can see that school photos score the highest. Why is that? Well, you can teach young photographers how to shoot the formulaic school photo, right? Classroom photo, individual student photo. These school administrators value the school photographer who can get kids in and out of the auditorium quickly. So someone who specializes in this is highly valued over just a general photographer. And parents want to purchase the school photograph every single year. So school photos score high on all 3 attributes: teachable, value to your customer, both the school administrators as the customer who hires you, and also the end customer of the parents, and it's repeatable. Most photographers don't run valuable businesses because they're highly dependent on their owner, but it doesn't need to be this way. And so this is an example of a chart, done for an actual photographer who went through this exercise and decided to focus the photography business around school photography. It's called the School Photography Company, and they've grown into a value business focusing on just this, because the owner, who was the sole photographer, now doesn't have to be the sole photographer. They have repeatable business, which is very important in building their value. Buyers like businesses with repeatable streams of income, and it's highly valued by their customers. You can see the choices on this graph. Sports teams, while they're teachable, there are fewer teams than there are classes in schools, so not as valuable. Corporate leaders will pay good money to look good, headshots and such. Corporate events is an opportunity, but each one is different, so not as teachable. Weddings are teachable and valuable, but there's not much repeat business, hopefully. So the School Photography Company chose to focus on the offering in the top right corner of the chart. This is the kind of exercise that the scalability module that we work with our clients focuses on. So when doing this exercise, you may notice that the most teachable things are the least valuable to your customers, and the most valuable things to your customers are the least teachable. In this scenario, we recommend you pick the teachable service because it's a lot easier to wrap that in a layer of good marketing and make it seem more unique and make it seem like a product. And this is one of the exercises that we do in our exit value planning and coaching program. Step 3 is be clear on your quarter-inch hole. Be clear about what problem your product solves for your niche. For example, let me go back. The Aquatic Vet Services company that I'm featuring here is a veterinarian service. They provide care for pet fish in California and Nevada. They didn't say we charge by the hour. They said we help sick fish, and they made it clear. They, just like the air-free duct cleaning company that offers services for homeowners who care about the air quality of their home. With a service, you're typically hiring a person, but with a product, you're selling a thing. So you want to brand it. The logo and the branding tools are going to look identical every single time you market your business. Productizing your service means you're going from a personal brand to a product brand. And we're going to show a couple more examples using the Aquatic Veterinary Services, the duck cleaning company, and we're named Spiffy, which is an on-demand car care company. People have reputations and products have brands. Normally, user interface and user experience services typically charged by the hour, time, or project, right? It's an IT consulting project. But in this case, with this company, Jane Portman, she's a user experience consultant, and she niched down to focus on the owners of small software as a service companies. She developed the user interface audit product, which packages her consulting into a product. The UI audit is a thing, not a service. Service businesses customize their deliverables and a unique proposal for every prospect, but product companies list their ingredients. In step 5, you need to list what customers get when they buy your product. In this example, Spiffy lists out what ingredients come in their products: vacuum, wheel cleaning, tire shine, etc. Now, this is a service. This is not a car wash facility. This is a service where they will come and do this for your car, in the parking lot, in your driveway, whatever it may be. So they want to clearly define what you get for your fee. Even though they're essentially just selling a service, they've made it appear to be a product. This business, called Data Stories, is a data analytics company. And most data consulting companies charge by the project or charge by the hour. But at Data Stories, they took the service and made it look like a thing. They listed each feature within the product, which is an important component in making a service look like a feature. Step 6, preemptive questions. Your clients are going to have objections, and when you're performing a service, you often have a meeting to discuss these objections. But and you have the sort of the luxury of hearing those objections firsthand, and you can address them in a conversation. But when selling a product, you don't have the benefit of a person to overcome objections. So in step 6, you need to consider what potential objections customers might have and preempt them. Here you can see Spiffy, the car service company, is anticipating and addressing potential objections like, what if I'm not happy? What if you damage my car? Who's going to do the work? What impact will it have on the planet? The step 7 is publish a price. Services are quoted by the hour, the day, or project, and such fees are usually presented at the end of a custom proposal. These are telltale signs that you're selling a service, but products publish their price and do not leave the customer wondering. Here's another example. Instead of just simply starting a consultancy, author Tucker Max productized his insight into a product called Book in a Box, which is a repeatable process for developing a book. Right? This could have been a service of, I'll help you get it published, I'll help co-author it, I will ghostwrite it, and with each project, assess the complexity and develop a proposal customized to each client. But instead, after several experiences, obviously, of doing this work and being able to figure out the levers that drive the size of the scope, he was able to create a repeatable process for developing a book. He renamed his company Scribe, and he productized the service, as you can see. Here's an example of a company that provides outsourced accounting and bookkeeping services. Like any good productized service, they've branded it, they've priced it using fixed price billing instead of hourly service fees. So also, I want to just interject, we will provide not only a recording of the program, but a PDF of the slides. So you'll have all of this information to refer back to when you decide that this is what you want to do with your business. One of the benefits of a service business is you always have sales leverage because your time is scarce. Because you can't make more hours in the day, customers know they need to act to get some of your time. With a product business, you need to give people a reason to act today rather than tomorrow. This means you need to manufacture a reason to act with scarcity. One of the reasons that Jason uses an invite-only approach to this mastermind group, remember for the digital marketing agencies, is the desire to maintain the illusion of scarcity. You can't buy a spot in his mastermind group. You must request an invite. Other methods to use include discounting or creating incentives with each purchase, but this is an important part of the process. So to recap the 8 steps for turning your service into a product, and I'll share with you, we've done this at Stony Hill Advisors. I was discussing it in our breakout group. Our service of selling a business is a package of many services, but we sell it at a fee, and it's up to us to manage our time in delivering that service. Sometimes it works out profitably, sometimes it doesn't, but it's easy for the customer to understand. Same thing with our services for acquiring a business and for performing a business evaluation. We're launching a new service called Exit Value Planning, which is really a coaching program. And what we've done is we've bundled the first 3 steps in our coaching curriculum into a 3-month service package. We're charging a flat fee, and it includes a business valuation. It includes an assessment on we call the personal readiness to exit. It includes an assessment on what are the value builder drivers and the value levers in your business. And then we come up with a roadmap. What's your value now? Let's say it's 3x of EBITDA. Where do we see it going? Maybe we see it going to 5.5x. And what's the pathway to get there? We present that roadmap, and then we ask the client to commit to a 9-month program where each month we will provide a set of services, workbooks, instructional videos, 2 meetings a month. So there's homework, there's meetings, there's post-meeting follow-up on a curriculum to improve those value drivers that will improve the valuation of the business. We ask them to pay up front for 9 months worth of work. However, they can cancel at any time and be refunded on a pro rata basis. So again, rather than charge for our time, we're creating a product for these services, and it's up to us to manage the scope and manage our time so that it remains a profitable So I want to thank you for participating in the program. Here's my contact information, fred@stonyhilladvisors.com, and my office number. And I'm happy to take questions at this time. So I will end the slideshow and stop sharing my screen.
Let's take a quick picture while everybody's still on. If everyone would turn their camera on, Zoe will take a picture so we can put this onto LinkedIn and let us know, comment on it. And okay, Chase, Lisa, Jim, great, thank you. Chase and Lisa, okay. Give us a 1, 2, 3, Zoe. All right, thank you. All right, so who has questions? We're going to open it up now.
Some people might be on mute. You want people to just raise their hand or post it in the chat?
If anyone's comfortable with unmuting, they could ask out loud, or if you're not comfortable with that, you can put it in the chat.
I actually have a question, Fred.
Dawn's got one.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dawn.
Fred, when you come in and work with professional service companies on that road to the potential exit, you listed some different buckets for us, but what do you find to be the most common reason that they are not really set up for the exit, and you need to continue to work with? Is it the process? We talked about the relationships, but what do you find to be the most common roadblock?
Really, really good question. And part of it depends on whether you have staff or whether you're a sole practitioner. Right? I sold a service firm last year with 10 employees, privately held company, sold it to a publicly held company. The owner did not want to retire and took a 3-year employment agreement and an earnout, 90% cash at closing, 5% on the first anniversary, 5% on the second anniversary, tied to some sales targets. Before reaching the first anniversary, all 10 staff people were gone. Some left because they didn't like the buyer and the buyer's culture, and some were, I'll say, dismissed by the buyer because they didn't feel that the staff were the kind of people they want to have. So after a year, the buyer was left with the seller still active in a business development role, and this was a staffing company, so staffing services. No real unique process as an asset. But the assets were their clients, the staff, and the brand reputation. They lost the brand because they became the Pennsylvania office of XYZ company. And they lost the staff. So all they ended up with really was the relationships, which for the most part have endured because the seller is still an employee. So one of the big challenges is in terms of the staff. I'm involved in a deal now where it's a company being acquired by the competitor, and the buyer wants to meet with the staff and get a sense and introduce and start to build a rapport, right? You know, we want you to stay under the buyer's ownership. But the seller doesn't want the staff to know that the company's in play.
Mm-hmm.
So the seller doesn't want the buyer to meet with the staff yet until it's like 2 days before closing. But the buyer doesn't want to wait that long because if all of the key staff members, and this is a company, it's a service business, and there's 20 employees. If the key next tier don't want to stay, the value is not the same for the buyer. So we have really quite a quandary that we are trying to navigate through to find a comfort zone. And so our solution was we're staging the due diligence. Buyer has just completed financial due diligence. So they're confirming that the offer we made stands. They had a quality of earnings analysis done by an outside CPA firm. So like we're good. The financial value that you presented to us that you wanted to sell at, we made our offer based on that. We've just confirmed it's all good. So now we want to move into the next stage and talk to your employees. Seller saying, no, I'm not ready yet. I want to talk about post-integration. I want to talk about when we have the same customers, how do we deal with that when I may be pricing it X and you're pricing it Y? We still have a lot of issues. So in terms of what craters the deal, access to staff is really key, and it's the seller's commitment to the new organization to say, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we have client retention and not client attrition.
Mm-hmm.
In most cases, those clients are really the largest component of the intangible assets that a buyer's buying. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Amy, I know you had a question.
The question I had was on when you talked about the productize with publishing the price. And you use Bench as an example. Okay. Bench, I'm very familiar with. Bench is a bookkeeping. Okay. We do some of that also. We also provide all the way through the CFO services as well. And it's interesting because it's one of the things that I have, I mentioned this earlier, we have a retainer base for most of our clients. And even on the new clients, we come in and do an hourly, and then for 3 months, then it becomes a retainer, because then we know the scope of it. Because when, you're talking and you do that, and everybody as a consultant knows, you think it's this and it ends up being this, because they're like, and this, and this, and this. So, great, we can handle that and include that. But when you do it where it's published and the pricing, I feel that ends up being, it detracts from the value. Can you explain why you would have people publish a pricing?
Well, unfortunately, the answer is always, it depends. So, we're actually going to do this now where we're going to charge $10,000 for our exit planning, and you get 3 things. You get evaluation, you get your exit readiness assessment, and you get your assessment of the value the drivers in your business that drive business value, not sales or profit, but value because a buyer is, even 5 years from now, is going to go through a valuation process, the same process we're going to go through for you. And so we're going to identify what elements are holding down your valuation: customer concentration, or owner dependency, or cash flow deficiencies, or whatever it may be. So yes, we're picking a price based on an estimate of how much time it's going to take, and it may have to be revised periodically because you don't really know. In your services, if you say, well, we're going to take your bank statement and provide you with a monthly profit and loss statement, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows as our deliverable of services, hopefully you could review the chart of accounts and review the trial balance ahead of time and be able to assess the anticipated complexity of that. And now you have a product that we're going to deliver at a certain price, and then hopefully you can push that down to your lower cost teammates to do, and know that there's a profit margin in that. But it is a struggle, and sometimes you don't get it right the first time, and you have to adjust it. I'm not suggesting you be like the car wash that says, a wash is X, and a wash plus vacuum is X plus, and a wax plus vacuum plus waxing is X plus plus. But people do at least understand that, and
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
All right.
One of the things I really didn't get into is something that we call the Rainmaker's Dilemma. We just didn't really have time. Maybe that's another presentation about the difference between what's the role of a leader in the company. It doesn't necessarily have to be a services business, but if you're the rainmaker, what's the value and what are the restrictions on you versus what we like to call an architect, which is a different role in leading the business, because rainmakers, unfortunately, have a limit what they can do and the value of their contribution to the business. And I'll just tease you for a future program that being an architect over a rainmaker can have great value. So leave it at that.
Sounds good. Sounds like another session. All right. Thank you all for joining. Fred, thank you so much for giving us your insight. That was absolutely amazing. It will be on the Beacon YouTube channel for those who want to see it again, and also the slides will be available.
Beacon is the premier executive networking organization serving the Mid-Atlantic region. To learn more, go to beaconforlife.org.